This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
From poverty and degradation to worldwide acclaim and riches, and then to poverty and ostracism, the life of MahanKirn Khalsa might seem wildly fictional to a listener, but she says she has the scars and the spiritual awakening to prove it. Now Ms. Khalsa is in the final stages of a 2-year project to write her memoir, tentatively titled Queen, a woman's journey from sexual slavery to radical forgiveness. She joins us for this Biz News interview. Let's start first. If you would tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself. How did you get to Beverly Hills?
I know. Well, a little bit. I was born and raised in Florida. I'll give you the quick overview. Then went to boarding school in India when I was 9. Was there for quite some time. Then went to military school in New Mexico. And from there was in New Mexico for about 10 years. Then New York, and have been in Los Angeles for the last 12 years or so.
Okay, but skipped over in that is a bit of time you spent in what you call a cult. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I never really heard of the word or liked the word cults, to be honest. And from, there was a friend who sent me 49 aspects of a cult from the FBI, that from all the work that they've done over years, and in reading those aspects, it was very eye-opening to all I knew. My family, my coworkers, my friends, my whole life. We were all following this leader that was given a lot of power over a lot of people, by ourselves and by my parents. So I was born into it. So that's a little.
How has that affected you and your business?
Well, that's a great question. By me speaking up, how's it affected my business? Well, I had a business partner that stole my business. I had people hack into my online portal and steal a bunch of stuff. And I have, been in a place of pausing and working on a memoir, finishing a memoir, and really, taking time for healing. So I'm trusting, in a place of trusting, that my business is now going to come from new seeds and a place of love within myself. And I love to serve and help people in their spiritual awakening. And the most beautiful gift from this, well, I'll let you ask the questions. I'll just answer your questions.
No, I think you have set up the question there. What do you think is the best thing out of all of this?
Well, I was groomed to be kind of the equivalent of the next Dalai Lama in our tradition. So there's one spiritual guru that has all these powers, and the next one chooses the next, and there's just one. It's called the Mahan Tantric. And I was groomed and trained and told for 2.5 decades that I would be this person, and it was all in secret. And so for me, I'm also taking responsibility. I wanted the spiritual power. I wanted the fame. I wanted the money and the accolades and the crowds of people that came along with that. But in speaking up, getting kicked out, you could call it, or coming into the realization that there was abuse, and I allowed me to fall off that ladder, that I was the spiritual ladder of my own ego, because it was very humbling to but so the biggest gift is that I really don't feel like I'm better than anybody else. And that comes across in my teaching now. I don't feel like I'm more spiritual than anyone. I feel like we're all spiritual, and we just get distracted. And those levels of distraction are different for different people at different times. And that I don't need to follow, there's nobody, I was following a guru. Everything was determined by this man from everything. Um, so that was within my own self, the biggest gift to myself of that, of coming off that spiritual ego, but also coming into self-love.
What you mentioned you are working on a memoir. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Well, I started 10 years ago, and I was writing all the great stuff of healing with the spiritual master and my life, in this spiritual community, and had not realized the extent of and the degree of the abuse that I had endured. So I was leaving out that part. All of the, it was all just glitter and, um, so in my healing journey in the last 2.5 years, after being one of the primary whistleblowers, I've come to terms with admitting to myself, sharing with my family, my community, my friends, of what actually happened for a long time, and writing about it. And really writing, the purpose was to, before I wanted to write to like have a bestseller and be on whatever show. And then I was like, no, I was rejected by the literary agents, and I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to write the book to heal myself. And that's what I've been doing the last 2 years, pretty much full time, is writing my journey from my heart and putting the pieces of the puzzle together of a very complicated journey and allowing time for the process that has happened of re-traumatization, allowing the months of pause for healing, getting trauma therapy, for healing from Stockholm Syndrome, for really coming back to forgiving myself that the book isn't good enough, right? Like, and so I've really taken this time to allow myself the time and space to write so that I feel complete and healed within myself.
You mentioned Stockholm Syndrome. That is something associated with victims of kidnapping, where they then associate themselves with their kidnappers and stop feeling like kidnappees. Not to make light of it, but uh, are you serious about that?
Well, I had the picture of the man who raped me repeatedly in my bedroom on the wall, and was promoting him for decades. It's been 18 years since he passed or so. So I was promoting him up until I spoke up 2.5 years ago. So I would call that Stockholm Syndrome.
What has happened to you since you became a whistleblower? A lot of people we say are are whistleblowers in government or business and whatever. What's been your experience?
It's not what I thought. I thought I would have people coming to support. I thought there would be I thought there would be like people reaching out. What do you need? How can I help? Has this affected your business completely? Has it wiped out your entire identity, income? But instead, it's felt very lonely, and I've had to take out significant loans to just survive. um, and so the community split between the believers and the non-believers. There's a lot of people in the yoga world that are placing this man's photo bigger, that are calling the whistleblowers I don't know what words I'm allowed to say on here, but horrors in public places, in large audiences where they're still holding these yoga events. I was teaching around the world to audiences on stages as my primary income. COVID hit, so it was kind of a double whammy with COVID plus being a whistleblower. So at the same time, the beautiful thing that's happened is a lot of, we call them second generation, and that have gone to school in India also are speaking up about abuse that they experienced. There's probably 150 to 200 people now as part of this, people that are coming forward with something that they feel traumatized by in this community. It's opened up a big reparation program so people can get trauma therapy. So for me and my micro thing, I haven't felt like the support, but I'm trusting that by focusing on the book, by opening up, right, the whole situation, that like the organization is saying, yes, this more than likely happened. And they're allowing a process for anyone to come forward with any kind of abuse, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, sexual, to tell their stories. So there's 3 documentary projects going on. So this is allowing, me to sit in a place that, as a leader, as a spiritual teacher, which I am, to remember that role. It may not feel or look like that right now as I'm, hiding in my office editing for the 97th time. But I do believe that I have a voice. I do believe that my book is going to help anyone with any kind of trauma in any kind of organization, that it really speaks to finding and remembering your own power, your own grace, your own light. So
Tell our listeners and readers, viewers, I should say, the name of the book.
Queen of Myself. And the tagline is A Woman's Journey from Sexual Slavery to Radical Forgiveness.
Well, that ought to sell a few things just based on that. What do you offer the business community in terms of your regular business? Not the book, but what you would normally be doing.
I love to take someone wherever they're at, to allow them to go into a journey of self-healing and awakening. So I do that one-on-one. I do that with families. I work with anyone from teenagers, any age, but I do meditation, spiritual mentoring. I work with homeless people, to single moms with 5 kids, to CEOs to become more intuitive. And I'm really a meditation expert. I really love bespoke meditation. And I've studied as an intuitive healer for 27 years, so I can assess someone, how their energy is working, how the mind is working, and what kind of breath work, what kind of affirmations can help shift the system to empower them to be their best self. So that's what I do.
One last thing I need to ask you, and I should have asked this before. Do you have a website that somebody can click on?
I do. It's MahanKirn.com.
You've been watching the Biz News Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. Thanks for watching.